Can one person's innovation really define a worldwide revolution? Well, if you believe the legend of H.V. McKay, yes.
A world revolution in agriculture had its beginnings in a farm smithy near Bendigo in 1884. An 18-year-old youth, Hugh Victor McKay, using the most primitive of tools, fashioned the first combine harvester.
But stripping back that story reveals a rather different tale from one of the most groundbreaking innovators of the early 20th century.
He was one part pioneer, but also one part hard-nosed industrialist.
He's a contentious figure, but you can't deny the brilliance of the man.
By the time McKay dies in 1926, his sunshine harvester works is immense.
And the largest agricultural enterprise in the Southern Hemisphere.
But the success that McKay earns at the end of his life isn't guaranteed, especially with fierce competition from the world's big players.
McKay was the son of a farmer, the fifth of 12 children. He was a very striking young man, shock of red hair, and obviously he had a tinkering and inventive turn of mind.
When a teenage McKay starts building his own harvester on the family farm, most of Australia's agricultural equipment was imported. South Australians have invented the stripper harvester, but no one has combined the actions of harvesting and separating the grain in the one machine.
It was the Victorians who did that. Not easy to do, actually.
Well, the legend tells us that McKay was the first to do this. Someone beat him to it in a government-sponsored competition in 1884.
It was won by James Morrow, a partner in an agricultural implement and machine-making business in Melbourne. But they made a bad decision as a company. They decided that they would perfect their machine before they could release it to the public, and they took a year off. And McKay seized the opportunity to have machines made and to have them on the market. Strictly speaking, he was the first person to market what he called a combine, a combination of these two machines. He didn't invent it, but he was the first salesman, you might say.
And McKay worked hard to sell it.
He was known as a traveller. Every town in the Wimmera and in the Mallee, it started in the 90s, every town had its agricultural show. And he went to far more than any other of his competitors.
But he doesn't have it all his own way.
The legend makes it look as though there was overnight success. No way. There's a decade of experimentation.
At this point, McKay doesn't even have his own factory. He designs the machines but outsources the manufacturing. And he relies on the help of his family and others when he nearly goes bankrupt around 1890.
They're a very enterprising family and they stick by him. But the interesting thing is he gets the support of 2 or 3 major farmers up in the Wimmera who bankroll him for his next period of experimentation.
McKay sets up his own factory in Ballarat and hits upon the name that becomes an icon.
And in 1896 he names his latest version the Sunshine Harvester. That is a great moment, and it's named after an evangelical preacher who's stumping around Victoria, and he seizes on that theme in the preacher's talk at Ballarat. It's harvesting God's bounty.
McKay uses the Sunshine name to great effect in marketing his products.
And we see H.V. McKay really was a pioneer in that space.
And a lot of the advertising was very colourful. And their line of machines, each of them has the prefix sun.
All emblazoned with the Sunshine logo, creating that consistency, that brand familiarity.
But it can't be an advertising trick. Your machines have got to work.
McKay's innovations position him as the biggest producer of agricultural equipment in Australia. But in 1902, severe drought hits.
That really limited the company's ability to manufacture and sell their products. So H.V. McKay had the foresight to look elsewhere and look globally. And he sent his brother Sam down to Argentina to investigate the market there.
But back home, McKay is also fending off stiff competition from those bigger international players.
He knows very well that there are massive agricultural machine makers in North America who've had decades of experience before him. So he sort of takes on the image also of the battler who's fighting these international giants.
And those bigger players start making copies to sell in Australia.
He knew that they would destroy him. He had to take them on, and he had to persuade governments. If he didn't protect the Australian industry, then it would disappear. And he got his way. He got protection.
This comes in the form of a tariff on imported machines, but with conditions. That leads to the so-called Harvester Judgment, which set the basis for the world's first minimum wage. McKay now has the perfect conditions to ramp up his business.
When HV McKay moved from Ballarat to Braybrook Junction in 1906, it really changed everything.
McKay is strategic when he buys his new factory site in Melbourne's west. It's close to the railway line, has plenty of space, and before long, even the suburb is rebranded Sunshine.
Sunshine as we know it today stems from the Sunshine Harvester Works.
What he's doing at Sunshine is creating this family company and the family of workers.
He was seen as being a paternal employer who offered a lot of opportunities to his staff and created a community around that business in Sunshine.
They buy land from him, they build houses, he has a housing department. That ties a worker to the company, obviously.
A lot of people started out at junior levels and then they made their way up into more senior positions thanks to the internal educational opportunities and training opportunities that were afforded to employees. They saw themselves in the story of HV McKay, in the story of Sunshine Harvester Works. I don't know of too many other industrialists who had that same kind of vision.
But while his successes are mounting, McKay is also wary of the future.
One of the problems with these companies, these agricultural machinery companies, is they often tend to run out of ideas. McKay became very worried about this.
He absorbs other businesses and products into his Sunshine empire, but keeps the doors open for more.
He was an immensely attractive figure to farmers and aspiring inventors. McKay was prepared to accept ideas for machines from wherever, as he did with Hedley Taylor.
With the advent of the Taylor header, a new era began.
The header, to a large extent, superseded the stripper harvester because of its ability to handle storm-flattened crops that would previously have been a total loss.
And Hedley Taylor has a deal with McKay to make it, and he comes down and really becomes head of the experimental department.
In 1924, the first Sunshine-developed self-propelled auto header with traction and machine drives operated by its own engine was released in Australia.
This is a world first, but in Australian agricultural landscape dominated by horsepower, it's ahead of its time. It's also the last innovation McKay oversees at his Sunshine Harvester Works. In 1930, the Sunshine Harvester Works merges with one of McKay's most fierce competitors, the Canadian firm of Massey Harris, and is eventually taken over in 1955. The Sunshine factory closes its doors for the last time in 1986.
You still have remnants of the business in Sunshine itself, one of the most iconic being the factory gates on Russell Street.
But what of the legend?
We talk about the world revolution in agriculture, the world revolution in harvesting. It's not HV McKay's revolution. It is not a revolution that's led by the combine harvester that he perfects in the 1890s. It's led by Australian engineers who work for people like McKay, who work for people like the Canadians. It's a story of leading figures like McKay. It's also a story of Australian ingenuity at another level.
His products revolutionised agriculture in Australia, and he had a big impact on Australian working life and innovation.
He was a remarkable man. It can't be denied, even if you're a sceptic as I was about the legend. I think the legend, in fact, disguised his achievements. Whatever you felt about McKay, there was a great story there, and it was bigger than the legend.